We have a society that's really addicted to dopamine. Anytime you start engaging in a hormone and putting it in your body, it's changing the natural cycles of what's happening in the body. We've all met somebody with bad luck, right? Nobody looks at somebody who's had a whole life of bad luck and goes, yeah, you're right, it's just luck. No, you look at them and go, you're a mess. For a lot of people, guilt and shame will sit in their lower belly, like in their gut. And they go, I don't want to feel that anymore, so they cut themselves off from that.
Mike, stop me if you've heard this joke before. You ever heard the joke about the two statues that were brought back to life?
No.
Two statues, both naked, male statue, woman statue, staring at each other for hundreds of years. Angel comes down, says, you guys have been patient for hundreds of years. I'm granting you life for 30 minutes. Do whatever you want. They look at each other, smile, go in the bushes. Of course, you start hearing the giggles and the laughs and all that. And then they come out after about 15 minutes, sweaty, tired from whatever it is that they were just doing. Angel looks at his watch and says, you have 15 more minutes if you want to do it again. They look at each other, smile, and the man's like, you want to? She's like, yes. But this time, let's switch positions. You hold down the bird, and I poop on it. Not where you thought it was going, was it?
No, that was a pretty good one. That's a good one.
Oh, man. How you living, man? Hopefully you're not getting pooped on out there by the birds.
No poop on me at all. Enjoying life. Yeah, maybe some unicorn turds here and there, you know. I'll take a unicorn.
Have you heard that adage where like it's good luck if a bird poops on you, or if you step in dog poop, like it's supposed to be good luck?
I have, but I've never felt lucky when it happens, you know.
That's the case. Do you believe in luck?
No. It's not a very empowering position to hold.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I hope this happens. Yeah. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. No. I find the harder I work, or the more intentional I am, the luckier I've been. I think that intentionality is more important than the work that I've done.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, the people I've talked to that appear to be much more developed in their consciousness than me, I never hear them talk about luck at all. And I only hear them talk about patterns. And they talk about, this thing happened. Okay, well, what was happening for you? What were you thinking about when that thing happened? And going back to our previous show where you're the creator of all that is you're having thought patterns, belief. So you have thought forms, which are thoughts that aren't quite concretized into your consciousness. And there's belief systems, which are thought forms that are repeated over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so, what were you thinking about when that happened? And then there's something to notice in that. And that can sound like really woo-woo to people, but I'll tell you, the things that used to seem mysterious to me or magical to me don't really seem, there's a lot of things that aren't magical to me anymore. It's just of course, that's it's very obvious. And so there are other things in my life that do still seem magical or mysterious. And I believe that from all the experiences that I had up to this point, that even though if it seems mysterious to me now, at some point I'll go, well, obviously that's how that works. I can see it. I see the pattern.
Well, it's like luck comes from awareness, right? The increased awareness that helps you pay attention to opportunities, patterns, and behaviors that lead to certain outcomes. And that awareness can do so much, not just from the external, but the internal. Something we're going to talk a lot about today, being the full stack report. Have a few research studies that we pulled up and can play more into this point. Has nothing to do with statues pooping on birds, by the way. That was just kind of a joke at top of mind I wanted to share with everybody.
Well, I mean, I do want to say this, though. We've all met somebody with bad luck, right?
Yeah.
You've met people who are like, I just have bad luck. And nobody looks at somebody who's had a whole life of bad luck and goes, yeah, you're right, it's just luck. No, you look at them and go, you're a mess. You know, like One way that when I analyze things, I look at I just take it to the extreme, and you know, yeah, I've met plenty of people who are just like I have bad luck, and they can walk me through all the bad things that happened in their life. I'm like, yeah, if you believe that you're unlucky, then that pattern's probably going to keep repeating. Now, if you can admit to yourself that it's a pattern, that your thoughts and the way that your mind operates is what's creating these scenarios, now you have a chance. But
Hmm.
as long as you keep saying it's luck, you don't have a chance.
I used to think I had bad luck with my car because I'd get flat tires here and there. And then I recognized I never
Oh.
checked the tire pressure in my car. It was an old car, and I would ride that on terrible streets. And I'm like, I was on my way to work. I got a flat tire. Bad luck. It's just something bad's happening to me. But no, bro. Like, pay
Yeah,
attention to your tire pressure. um,
yeah, it can be that
that works.
simple.
Exactly. Speaking of paying attention to your tire pressure, I think we're going to like this study, introspective posture awareness and accuracy. So this was actually a study posted in Frontiers in Neuroscience 2024. So it's pretty recent. And the focus was on how accurately people perceive internal bodily states and their postural alignment. So, in plain English, the summary says assesses how well people sense their own bodily states. The implication is if your internal sensing is off, uh, you misjudge energy and fatigue, leading to overdrive or collapse. So, the takeaway was that include micro body check moments throughout the day, posture reset, breath scans, to better understand internal feedback. And this lines up with the discussion we had with Dr. Ray about the fitness trackers. You have the Garmin, I have the Whoop, he has the Whoop, and you eloquently described how you wake up and your Garmin's like, you have sleep, and you're like, but I feel great. And how these can
Yeah.
disrupt us. So reference the study a little bit in terms of that interceptive posture awareness and accuracy and how it helps us perform better and more effectively.
Oh man, this is a deep one. Um, so there's one thing to be able to feel something, and then it's another thing to be able to command it. So one of the things the study is getting at is if you have poor interoceptive awareness, then you're likely expending a lot more energy throughout the day because there's not biomechanically your body is having to work harder in order to be upright, right? So if I'm slumped over, that means I have really poor leverage between two joints, which means that muscle has to work extra hard. So it's just wasted energy for one. So that's one motivating factor for having good posture. It also talks about how the posture of the individual is individualized. And so there is no perfect posture for every single person. We're all different to some degree. But I've put a lot of consideration into this, into being able to feel your own body. I remember I had a buddy from my like high school years who came and visited me here in Austin, Texas, a couple years ago, and I go, you know what, I'm he wasn't he's not somebody who lives the healthiest lifestyle. I'm not going to name him, but if he listens to the show, he knows who I'm talking about. Is we go to I go, I'm going to take him to do some Austin stuff. And so we go and do sauna and cold plunge. It's like, all right, let's go sit in the sauna. Let's go do some contrast therapy. Let's do some biohacking stuff. And he had never done it before. A lot of people have sat in saunas, but most people have not jumped in, 36-degree water. So, but I remember in the sauna, and we'd been there for about 20 minutes, and there was a conversation happening in the sauna, and he said something. I go, "Oh, is your heart beating fast right now?" Like that's how I know when I'm really pushing it in here, is I can feel my heart beating really hard and fast. He goes, "No, I can't feel my heart beating." And I go, do you normally not can you like stop and feel your heartbeat?" And I said, "Okay, let's slow down and feel your heartbeat." He goes, "Nope, can't feel it." I'm like, "Dude, we've been in here for 20 minutes. If you're going to feel your heartbeat at any time, it's going to be in the sauna." and he couldn't do it because he wasn't training himself to feel his body. Most people are training themselves to not feel their body. It's so uncomfortable. They're things aren't where they could be, and it's painful, and so they cut themselves off from that awareness. So one is, when we study the nervous system, there's the nervous system that is sensing, and you're pulling information in from the body, and then there's information going the other way where I'm commanding the body to move in different ways. And so if I can't sense a part of my body, my ability to command that part of my body goes down. And so if anytime I run into somebody who is really they lack grace and finesse in their body, or they're a bit clumsy, it's because they're actually not receiving the information either. Some people talk about, oh, I'm just clumsy, just kind of like I'm unlucky. I'm just clumsy. I'm like, you're not present in your own body. But what the study was getting at was like, how are you able to tell where your body is in space in relation to itself, and then make the adjustments so that you can have better posture? And so we spend so much time at computers. I know I do. I think you do as well, where we're totally locked into what's happening visually and not paying attention to what's happening in our body at all. And then sitting at my desk for an hour, and I realize that my shoulders are hunched over and this and that, and I'm actually expending more energy than I need to. So the other thing is that stress is causing some type of stress cognitively that we're unaware of. But what can happen in our lives, and the reason we're cut off, one is through repetition. We're cut off from our bodies through repetition. Sit in school, put all your attention in what's happening visually and audibly. Don't pay attention to how you're feeling. So that's one. And then also there are events that happen in our lives that make us feel, where we feel a certain way and we go, I don't want to feel that ever again. And so one thing that I found is, for a lot of people, guilt and shame will sit in their lower belly, like in their gut. And so certain types of emotions will reside in different parts of their body. And they go, I don't want to feel that anymore. So they cut themselves off from that. And so their ability to feel that part of their body actually goes down, and their ability to have command over it. And so when I see people with poor posture, it's related to usually an emotion they don't want to feel. And so in order to build up that interoception, one is to take breaks, tune in with your breath, feel what's going on, but also it's, what emotion aren't you feeling right now? And the more work I've done around getting really getting more aware of what's happening emotionally, I become more athletic, and I experience a lot less pain in my body overall. So yeah, when I read through that study, that's what was coming up for me on that one. How about you?
Well, I thought a lot about the posture side of things. And it was a TED talk I watched a long time ago about how posture can change your mindset. And one of the things they referenced was how in nature, how in nature, the predators will make themselves big to be intimidating, or to show victory and triumph. They make themselves big. And there was a picture of the famous Usain Bolt picture when he's got the arms stretched open and out, right? That's a victory pose, right? That posture is victory. And there's actual science showing, like, if before an interview, before talk, if you take a big stance, you increase your size and your posture, you actually trick your brain into that emotion as well. When you talk about I love it when you said sensing increases the ability to demand. Cold plunging is fantastic. I have jumped in 36-degree water. Yikes. But what I've noticed, and I've done this with the Whoop, is I'm tracking my heart rate, and my heart rate's jacked to like 120. And I'm not even in the water yet, Mike. It's all in
Yeah.
anticipation of getting in. And I'll tell you, I'm most productive right before a cold plunge. I'll clean the house. I'll pay some bills. I'll do everything else I got to do before getting in that cold water. But when I finally face it and I get in there and I practice my breathing, I slow down my breathing. One of the most amazing things to see is that heart rate go from 122 down into the 80s, even into the 70s while I'm in the water. And I'm like, whoa, okay, yes, I wasn't aware of my heart rate going that high. I did not do that. But what I did do with intentionality was bring my heart rate back down. And that side of things, as I'm reading the study, shows, oh, okay, your body, to your point, will respond to the externals around it, but your ability to sense it is to regulate and fix it, because our bodies, specifically our brains, are still archaic. We've advanced technologically so much faster than we have biologically. And because of that, if I'm late on a deadline at work, my body thinks it's being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. And I have to be the big boy, the adult, and check in with my body, bring it back down and be like, bro, we're not dying today. We're okay. We can keep moving forward. And that was some of the key insights that it says is when founders ignore their physiological cues, the tight chest, shallow breathing, posture slumping, then that leads to cognitive and decision fatigue. And that, again, hinders your ability to make wise decisions in the moment. And my wife is great at reminding me all the time. You see all those folks with tech neck when their head's down because they're always in their phone all the time. That's put, like, your head is not light. Like, the head is not a light thing. And then you lean forward and you put all that strain on the back of your neck. That's also deteriorating your
Well, for
posture,
some
expending
people's heads are
energy.
light, you know, but
That's a whole different. That's a whole different
not
podcast,
your
right?
head though.
But that's kind of what
Well,
I got
that
from it.
that makes me think about you know, we've advanced technologically, but not biologically. But another way to look at it is we've advanced and evolved cognitively, but we haven't evolved emotionally. So there's things out in the environment that are, it's like there's no longer a threat, but my emotional body is underdeveloped, and so everything does look like a threat. And so, yeah, I'm going to dump those stress hormones, and I'm going to make the breath shallow because an email came in, not because there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing me. And then the other thing you were talking about, the cold tub. And so one of the things that I do in the cold tub is uh some people do like breath work before they get in. They do all this stuff, which, you know, teach their own. What I like to do is just go straight into the cold tub, no mental preparation at all, because I like to see how I respond. And so what I like to do is I go in and I do a head dunk right away. So I go in,
Nice.
I do a head dunk, which causes my breath to, you know, people talk about I lost my breath. The breath speeds up, and and that's the system freaking out. And my goal is, okay, after I dunk my head, how quickly can I get my breath to be low and slow? And I bring my breath low and slow. And my favorite thing to do is to do 30 breaths in the cold tub. So I get in and I go low and slow, and it usually takes me, on a good day, in 6 breaths, I can go from big in and out of my mouth to low and slow in my nose.
Mm.
And I watch my heart rate because I've got a watch where I can track it in real time. Yeah, it jacks way up and then it comes way down. It comes below my normal resting heart rate while in the cold tub. And what I do is I'm looking at the timer. I'm seeing how long I can stay in the cold tub for 30 breaths. So I'm trying, the goal is to go low and slow so that I stay in there longer. So I've gotten up to 6 minutes, 30 breaths in 6 minutes with the cold tub. I mean, I burned through the first 10 breaths in the first minute. You get in, it's like, it's real fast. I'm counting those and I go, so then I get it down to really slow breaths. And the speed at which I can get my breath under control and the duration I stay in the tub is very indicative of what's going on with my nervous system. If I only pull off 2 to 3 minutes, I'm tired. I need to rest. And I shouldn't stay in the tub very long. That's why I limit myself to 30. But if I make it to 60, or not 60, up to 6 minutes, man, my nervous system is tuned. I'm well rested. Everything's going really well. And so, yeah, you talking about that really got me thinking about that with the nervous system. And the way I see it is, if I can, the cold tub is a stressful environment, and that's why people who do cold plunges do really well under stress, is because we're training ourselves to be calm when there's this physical thing happening. And so
Mm-hmm.
I see it as really great training to be able to just manage anything that we encounter in life.
I love that. And that actually segues perfectly into the second research study and some of the tips you've given me here on the podcast for accountability. For anybody who's been watching and rocking with us and binging these, thank you, by the way. But here's the accountability, Mike, because you recommended the Echo bike, the assault bike. You recommended some long runs because folks that listen, they know I've been trying to get my heart rate down. And right before the pod, I told you how I got my heart rate down to 61. We started at like 69, 70, by the way. Got it down to 61, started doing the Echo bike. And that alone, having the resting heart rate down to 61 and doing the Echo bike, spike coming down, gave me a heart rate variability of over 100, about 107. And the way I'm understanding it now, the more I'm obviously doing this podcast with you, learning more about the nervous system, is that heart rate variability shows adaptability. And when we have our heart rate jacked up before getting in the cold plunge and then plummeting while we're breathing there, we're showing how adaptable we are in the environment and how regulated our nervous system is. So I know you probably have some things to say on that. I do want to reference the study about the dynamic HRV and positive effect in daily activities. And in the plain summary is dynamic HRV changes mirrors positive emotions across daily contexts, sleep, work, movement. Better HRV flexibility correlates with improved mood and performance. More of that regulated nervous system and its ability to perform. And this was actually published in 2024 as well in Nature Scientific Reports. So the focus was on real-time tracking of heart rate variability and positive emotions across everyday activities. Say more.
I don't know if there's really much more for me to say here. I think I've said on some previous shows, but the HRV is a great way to calibrate where you're at. But one thing I really like about the study is they're talking about improved mood is correlated. And so you don't always have to look at HRV as like, what's your mood like? Do you have a positive mood? And so um, I can I can start to predict the things that are going to make me have a good mood, and those are the same exact things that are going to improve my HRV. So one is I have multiple movement sessions throughout the day. And this kind of goes back to the posture study, the one we talked about previously, which is my best sleep happens when in the morning I do a light movement. I spend about an hour stretching and moving really light. Um, and I actually have some of this stuff in the full stack school for people. They can go check it out. I have some movement stuff in there and some breath stuff in there. But I do stretching and I do light movement and I do breath work in the morning. And in the afternoon is when I do a training session and I get my heart rate up there. If I move 2 times a day like that, if I dedicate an hour here and an hour there, that's when my mood is the best. When I go to bed at night, I don't feel tired. I'm like, it's time to go to bed. I'm ready to rest, but I'm not dragging myself to bed. That's also an indication. If you're going to bed, if you're dragging yourself to bed tired, and a lot of people do this, is they'll watch TV until their eyes are drooping. You've gone to bed too late. What I like to do is read instead of, at 8:30 or so. It's like, okay, let's turn off the TV and let's get into reading mode or whatever. But if I've moved a couple times and got my heart rate up, and I brought it back down a couple times, that's when I see the best results with resting heart rate, HRV. And the rest of my day is just much more smooth. And so I got to hang out with the breathwork guy a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about breathwork that improves HRV. And the best thing he found was the, the, uh, the amount of time you're exhaling equaling the amount of time you're inhaling. is what's going
Mhm.
to create the best HRV. And so doing a breath work where, you're exhaling for 3 or 4 seconds and then inhaling for 3 or 4 seconds and going back and forth and doing some holds at the top and at the bottom of your breath, mixing that up is also going to improve the HRV. I've noticed that.
Mm.
And then lastly, something that I do seasonally, which I just started last night, is I started eating a little bit of Amanita muscaria mushrooms before bed.
Hmm.
And it's the mushroom you see in Mario Brothers, the
Oh
red
yeah.
and white dots. Yeah. Um, that one, it's a legal mushroom you can buy online. If you take very large doses of it, it will become psychedelic, but it behaves differently than other magic mushrooms because it binds the GABA receptor and actually down regulates the body and helps put you at rest. And
Hmm.
so there's all sorts of tools to do it, but I notice these tools not only improve my HRV but improve my mood. If I take that little bit of microdose that mushroom before bed, wake up feeling a lot well rested and feeling good. Um, I'm sitting on a grounding mat right now. I know that when I'm on a grounding mat, that helps improve the HRV, which improves my mood. So
Yeah.
we don't always need to be looking at just the metrics. We can be tapping into how we feel, which goes into the first piece of research as well. Is are you tapped into what's actually happening in your body? If you're feeling it, then you're going to be able to know without needing to have a device um, show you what to do. Dr. Andy Galpin posted a research article on wearables and how
Hmm.
people who become obsessive about their metrics are actually causing themselves undue stress. And so it's it's a great calibration tool, but I wouldn't get too obsessed about it.
Yeah. And I try not to get too obsessed about it. I'm more of like the tracking to see the trend on it. But I do want to double tap on the mushroom to go to sleep really quick because something I had in my stack, pun intended, for just my nootropics and trying to dial everything in at one point was melatonin. But I stopped because I was doing more research on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the body produces its own melatonin. But when you're taking melatonin, it actually hinders your body's ability to produce it on its own. It's almost like introducing the androgynous melatonin reduces the body's ability to do it on its own because it senses that it has plenty of it. It has the amount, and then you almost stay stuck on it. I guess is the of an organic, holistic way of getting the same effects.
So neurotransmitters are just hormones in the brain. So neurotransmitters and hormones, they fall in the same category under endocrinology, the endocrine system. And so if you were to introduce testosterone into your system, your body would stop producing as much testosterone. So any type of hormone, because melatonin you can consider it to be a hormone. Your body has got there's a hormonal cascade. There's master hormones, and then there's hormones that aren't considered master hormone. They're not impacting the others as much. But anytime you start engaging in a hormone and putting it in your body, it's changing the natural cycles of what's happening in the body. Now, I keep melatonin on hand for when I change time zones. Is what I use it for. I went to Europe. I came back from Europe, and I actually take a very high dose of melatonin. Then, like much higher than what you're going to find most places. I'm taking 50 milligrams.
Damn.
Um, yeah, it's a lot. But there's also some research to show that it helps activate some detox pathways,
Nice.
and so it's more than just putting you to sleep. But a high dose will reset the system. Staying on anything. So the I'm talking about, I'll do it 5 days a week, not 7. And then I don't do it year round. I do it for a season. And then I'll make sure that at least every quarter I'm taking a whole week off. Now that is for all supplements. Any supplement at all. I don't think there's any one thing we should be doing all the time, including eating, and that's where fasting comes in. But we should be giving our body a break from time to time so that it can find its own rhythm and and I put a lot of things in my body that have thrown the rhythm off over the years, and I found that I operate optimally over time when I'm putting the least amount of things in it consistently. And uh, so yeah, that's my 2 cents worth on things like melatonin. And there's some disagreement out there whether using melatonin impacts your body's production of it. But I will say this, whether it impacts the production of it or not, you are going to impact how um, sensitive the cells are in receiving those. So insulin, if you were to take a lot of insulin, your cells would become desensitized to it. If you were to look at the sun, there's a common analogy. If you were to look at the sun directly for too long, it'll desensitize your eyes to light, which would cause you to stop being able to see things better because your vision is all you're doing is receiving light waves in your eyes. And so you don't want to get overexposed to anything for too long.
Great advice there, and that's why I want to double tap on that, because it's pretty much what the whole melatonin was research was telling me. It was like, yeah, man, don't rely on this. It's not an everyday thing because your body's gonna rely on it, and you're just gonna need more and more. Before we go to the next study, when it comes to HRV, anybody who's thinking with themselves, some of the tips you gave me with the long runs to lower my resting heart rate, the breath work has been great. I've done the more of the Wim Hof practice, in and out, 30 breaths, hold on the out, hold on the in, repeat. I'll do about three rounds right now. Box breathing. And when you mentioned earlier about the 30 breaths, I started calculating in my head because I forgot the name of the practice, but I started trying to do 6 breaths in a minute. And just kind of slow my breath down and focus on just doing 6 breaths within a minute. Just slow it to that point. But those have been all practices I've adopted, as well as the interval training, spiking my heart rate to really help with my heart rate variability and adaptability, and jack up my nervous system by introducing stress. Any other tips or advice you give to entrepreneurs, high performers that are listening that want to improve their HRV for better mood?
Well, one thing I'll say is try something for about a month and see if it's consistent because a lot of times I'll introduce something. What I see happen commonly, and I've done this myself, is introduce too many new things at once, and then you don't really know what's working for you. And for most people, the thing that's going to make the biggest impact is going to be the thing that you have um, a deficiency in. So if a grounding mat is going to be the thing that helps you sleep the best, well, that means you haven't been getting enough grounding. Maybe you've been wearing shoes too much. You haven't been getting in touch with the earth enough, and you're a bit disconnected from the earth in some way, or you're surrounded by too many electronics, and maybe just unplugging your Wi-Fi at night could be the best thing. And so I think a lot of times in an attempt to sleep better or improve HRV, people are taking something that is generally accepted, like, oh, I heard about this new supplement, or I heard about this new thing, and it's maybe they're taking melatonin when they need to just be grounding. And yes, the melatonin helps, but it's not, you're not actually satisfying the deficiency. And if you improve the deficiency, well, now everything starts operating satisfactorily. So like you just, for me, it's the body when it's satisfied with all the nutrients, including sunlight and grounding and movement, will heal, it'll sleep, and the HRV will be on point. So there is no one hack fits all. It's really good to be. This is one thing I love about biohacking. There's a common term in biohacking, which is N equals 1. And N is the number of people in the study. So if you're reading research, N is the number of subjects in the study. N equals 1 means I'm my own subject in my own study at all times. Because no matter what study is going on out there, there's always outliers, and you have to be experimenting on yourself if you ever want to find the true answer. And this is where a lot of modern medicine has really failed, because they've created due to liability issues, they've created standards to treat everybody the same no matter what. And there's not really, medicine isn't being practiced anymore. It's an algorithm. If you have this symptom, we'll give you this. They're not the doctor should be a scientist, should be there with you, but we can't count on them to do that anymore. So you have to do it for yourself.
Amen. Absolutely. It's more like the standards just build out this black and white protocol where when it comes to the human body, it's just a million shades of gray, and it doesn't necessarily fall into one or the other. Last study is intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation in learning and behavior. So this one is in cognitive, affective, and behavioral neuroscience. Very recent study, 2025, this year. The focus was cross-cultural study comparing internal motives, autonomy, curiosity, mastery versus external ones, status, money, recognition, in sustaining learning and creativity. Core findings was that intrinsic motivation activated more of the limbic system, the circuits which link for curiosity and exploration, while intrinsic rewards triggered more of just the transient reward spikes in the nucleus accumbens. So pretty much just quick reward, fizzles out, not as long-standing. So over time, heavy resilience on external motivators blunted dopamine responses and decreased persistence in problem-solving tasks. So the fire burns out if you're just focusing on external metrics versus internal motivators, such as autonomy, curiosity, and mastery. Something I feel like that we've known, but we could explore more.
Yeah. So this makes me think about dopamine and serotonin. And so these are two neurotransmitters, dopamine being, if we want to think about, about them from like a drug perspective, like the ultimate dopamine, and then a good serotonin would be like uh, elicits a dopamine response, but also a very high serotonin response. And so dopamine is usually delivered in short bursts. Like it doesn't last very long. Like you hit that dopamine, and it's like you achieve your goal, or social media is like hitting you with a lot of dopamine, and it's usually driven by the external. Like something externally is happening, and now I'm having a dopamine response to that. And that's why um, anyone who starts, if you go around and start looking for like dopamine reset protocols, it's going to be put your phone down and stop looking outside of yourself so much and spend more time inside of yourself. And then you have the serotonin, which is something that that builds over time. So I'm building a business that I love and I'm passionate about, then there's going to be more daily satisfaction, and that's there. I'm invested in my family, and we're having kids. Like when your baby was born, it was a very different experience than when you got a raise, right? Those are very different experiences. Both were like, say, positive. They were exciting, but they were exciting, and like that your felt sense of that was very different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, the one was, oh yeah, and then like within a day or so, you're like fizzled into the new reality. I'd say
Yeah.
the second one, the baby being born, even to this day, my wife still look at each other like, dang, this is real. Like it's still going.
Yeah. Yeah. And so immediately I start thinking about those two different neurotransmitters, and how those are activated naturally out in the world. But if I just I like to use the drug analogy, because some people are familiar with these things, and usually if someone's doing all the time, you're like, they need that dopamine has to be experienced more frequently in order to be satisfied, and serotonin doesn't have to be. You don't have to have like a constant serotonin hit to feel that same experience. That's why you can take like serotonin drugs, usually take once that day and then enjoy the whole day. And a dopamine, like every 20, 30 minutes, you got to go back. You got to keep going back. So, I don't know from personal experience. I just heard.
Fair enough. I was gonna say for my non drug users, I think of the bonfire, right? You have the lighter fluid, which goes up in flames. It's hot, it's big, but it burns out really, really quick. But it's the embers and the wood that lasts into the night, the crackle, the pops, and the warmth that comes off of it for the rest of the night. Like it's the lighter fluid is that dopamine. You're gonna get a big flash and a big plume of heat, but that dissipates really quick. But those logs burn into the night and even overnight if you don't wash them out properly. But that's more of the serotonin, the consistent burn of enjoyment and fulfillment that can come from that intrinsic motivator.
And we have a society that's really addicted to dopamine. Getting the good grades is a dopamine hit. Uh, Having making the money is a dopamine hit. And if you just look at culturally, like, how do we measure the success of an entire nation? It's GDP, gross domestic product. It's a measure of money moving around. How much money moved around in that given period. And so, yeah, if you want to, again, if you want to go along with the rest of society, you can just keep chasing dopamine, which means that you're going to end up being a puppet, because the job of anyone who, like, the people who rule the world, we can think about people in government, we can think about people who are running very large companies. They use something called incentives, right? Taxes are put there to incentivize you to a certain type of behavior. It incentivizes real estate investing, because if you invest in real estate, you'll pay less taxes. There's certain things they want you to buy, and there's certain things they don't want you to buy. They tax cigarettes at a really high rate, to disincentivize you from doing that. And so, in business, they're going to incentivize you with uh, pay and benefits, and they're setting up incentives and disincentives all the time. And so, this constantly looking outside of ourselves to be incentivized to do certain behaviors, it's so short. It's such short satisfaction. And so, to break away from the crowd and really achieve mastery at something, because I think mastery was mentioned in this article, or maybe not, but that's where my mind went.
Mm-hmm.
Was, in order to really master something, it's going to take 7 to 10 years, and dopamine is not going to take you there. You gotta you, you you may see somebody master something over their entire life, but if you're really in love with the thing, you're going to master it in a shorter period of time, and you're really going to enjoy it. And I believe that um, the book Mastery by Robert Greene comes up and talks about mastering 3 things in your lifetime. And if you're really doing things that are intrinsically motivating, or sometimes I kind of say, extrinsic motivation is motivation and intrinsic motivation is inspiration. That's how I create a distinction. So sometimes when I'm talking about motivation or inspiration, I check in, I go, am I motivated by this, or am I inspired by this? And the things that I'm inspired by are going to be the things that are likely going to result. Those are investments. When I invest in things that are inspiring, it may not mean the most amount of money now, but in 10 years, it definitely will.
Yeah.
And because not only am I going to potentially make more money doing it, but I'm going to be much more satisfied by it. And that's much more valuable to me than numbers in a bank account or material wealth.
It makes me think of, because you mentioned who runs the world, whether it's government, business owners, richest man in the world, Elon Musk. It makes me wonder what his motivator is, because while he can get handsomely rewarded financially for the ventures that he's doing, he also shows from my perspective, a constant disregard for money. And it's almost as though it is his intrinsic motivations that has led him to really do what he is able to do and set these audacious goals and really go for broke. Like, don't pay me if I don't hit these huge unrealistic goals and then hold my beer while I actually do it. You know, it's so like it begs the question, like, you know, what motivates someone like Elon Musk, to your point of having something more than just the external metrics or those incentives that drive us for creating something.
Well, there may not be a metric that's driving him. He may have another external motivator
Mhm.
that, like, this comes up a lot of times. I've met a lot of people who have made more money than they'll ever spend. And that's like, there's a level of freedom there of like, oh, I've made $1 billion. I'll never spend $1 billion on my own personal activities, right? That's a lot of money. I mean, you could figure out a way to blow it for sure, but the when somebody's made more money than they'll ever spend, there there's like two things that become present. I think one of them could be, yeah, they are intrinsically motivated, or they're having that inspiration. They're operating from that. Or I think what is also true is now they're competing on for something that has nothing to do with money. Uh, it's how people in their circle are viewing them. So, like, Elon's no longer the richest guy. That he got passed up last week. Um,
Ah,
and
dated
so
information.
some yeah, somebody's stock skyrocketed and went right past him. But it's like when say you're a billionaire, you may be looking at other billionaires and being like, well, I'm not the richest billionaire. And it has nothing to do with money, like, to that degree. Like, as far as like meeting needs, all the needs are met. But now it's a game of like, I'm still comparing myself to others. So I don't think that I'd be willing to bet. I mean, this is just a guess that there's probably a lot more people who are not billionaires that are intrinsically motivated than the ones who are,
Mhm.
because a lot of what drove them there is an external factor. Now, that's not always true. You know, Elon does seem to be quite inspired to go to Mars. I don't think he really cares. He doesn't seem to care what people think about him. Um, and he doesn't seem to be trying to impress anybody. But I don't know his inner workings, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I've also met a ton of people who make very little money, who are inspired every day and are very, very content and happy. So I don't think that these are necessarily connected. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I would say I'm definitely motivated extrinsically and intrinsically.
Yeah.
So the game I like to play is, what am I intrinsically motivated, and then how do I use my creativity to turn that into dollars so that I have more options. I have more options to travel, or I can just do something whenever I feel like it. And so both can be present, and I don't think one's bad or good, but I don't think that you have to be making a certain amount of money in order to have that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it comes from knowing exactly what it is you want. It reminds me of the story, the parable, what have you, of the fisherman on the beach. I don't know if you've heard this, where the businessman meets the fisherman on the beach, and he's got this skill of he's going out finding the fish, and he sells the fish on the beach, and he just plays music with his buddies at night, drinking beers. Wakes up the next morning and does it again. And the entrepreneur was just like, man, you gotta package these fish and sell it. And the fisherman's like, for what? He's like, because then you can have a warehouse and you have all the fish, and then from there you sell that. And it's for what? Because, and then you can go international, and then you can make all this money and then scale even more. And he goes, for what? He's like, then you can exit and retire with all this money and then do whatever you want, like play music on the beach at night, drink beers and fish all day. And he's like, sir, I do that now. So why go through all that when he knows exactly what he wants, and he doesn't need the billions and millions in order to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to run a program called the Strong Coach, and a lot of people came in, and if you look at the coaching industry over the last decade, there's all these promises of make $10,000 a month, make $10,000 a month, because most people the average person, an American, if you make $10,000 a month, you can do and you're doing something you love. That's good enough, at least to get started. And $10,000 a month means I can quit my job, and then I can really pursue what I want. And at least maybe it's not something I 100% love. So a lot of people did the program, they made their $10,000 a month, and then they realized they didn't want to run a coaching business either. They just saw that as like better than what they were doing. And then they ended up going into a different business altogether, like many people did. And I loved watching it. I loved watching people. I know people are listening to this right now who did that program and that happened for them. I would love for you to leave a comment on the YouTube, leave a comment on YouTube telling your story, please. So it's, it, it can be really interesting. So when people do find like a certain level of freedom by focusing on that number, things can change for them. And then other people go, okay, I made 10 grand as a coach. I love coaching. Let's do 20. Let's do 100. Let's turn this into an 8-figure coaching business. That happens as well. But yeah, it's really, I would say it satisfies me much more. And it satisfied me much more when I was running that program to watch people go, you know what? I want to run a dog grooming business, or I want to I want to run something else. I really love dogs. I thought I wanted to coach, but it just got me out of my day job so I could get to a point where I could consider what is it that I really wanted. And they needed that external thing met so they had enough freedom over their time, because most people that have a job don't have freedom over their time. And once they have freedom over their time, then they have time to consider and contemplate and reflect and find something new for themselves.
I love that. And that reminds me of a conversation I had. This guy was a decamillionaire, and he mentioned how money is like gas, and you acquire as much of it as you want, but it means absolutely nothing if you have a full tank of gas and nowhere to go. What good is a full tank of gas? So whether you have a full tank, half tank, or a quarter tank, if you don't know where you're going, it's of no use. But it is a beauty to have a tank of gas to give you the autonomy over time to find out, maybe take some time to look at the map and explore some areas. And the best thing about a full tank of gas is if you don't like where you're at, keep on driving to the next spot. Mike, this has been fantastic and a lot of fundamental and foundational insights for folks to take away from these 3 research studies in order to not just show up better for themselves, but push forward. Anything else you wanted to add, whether it be in relation to heart rate variability, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, or the interoceptive posture awareness and accuracy, and how we can pay attention to our bodies?
The theme here is to tune in to what's happening inside. And that our society doesn't train you to do that. So give yourself a lot of grace as you go down this journey where you're looking more inside. It may take a few years. Doesn't have to, but give yourself that grace and realize, well, I may be an adult when it comes to pursuing things outside of myself, but I might be a child when it comes to pursuing what it is I truly desire.
And the journey is what makes this whole thing worth it, man. Love it, Mike. We covered a lot, but that first question that you just mentioned, and like we said off the bat, was, can you feel your body? I used to practice like feeling the tongue on the roof of my mouth or paying attention to my breath. A lot of these things that we do automatically that we don't want to pay attention to, but feeling the body increases the sense of self. The increased sense of self increases the demand, and that demand allows you to command yourself and your reality. What emotion aren't you feeling? And where in your body is that emotion stored? We know that the body keeps the score. And if you're storing that emotion in the stomach or in your shoulders, if there's an area of your body where the emotion is held and you're refusing to feel that emotion, you're also refusing to feel that body part, which reduces your sense of sense, which reduces the demand. Give the body a break. Help it find its own rhythm. Shouldn't do anything consistently nonstop, right? Take a break, whether it's fasting, whether it's pausing from your supplements. Give your body a chance to reset and find its own rhythm. And then try something for about a month to see if it's consistent. Don't introduce a whole bunch of different things and say, okay, I think it's working, because then you can't fully and scientifically identify what change actually moved the needle. So implement things slowly, try it for at least a month to see if it's consistent, and N equals 1. You are the test subject. It's your experience that will show the proof of the actions and the behaviors that you're taking. Dopamine's the lighter fluid. Serotonin is the logs that burn. Or dopamine's the cocaine. Serotonin is more, whichever your flavor is. And last but not least, finding freedom. You might be motivated by external things like money as of right now, but that can only take you so far. So if those external motivations gets you to a point where you find that time freedom, make sure you use that time to fully identify what it is internally that you truly want, so you can live a life that's full, that's stacked, and that is continuing to give back, because that is exactly what we do here on the Full Stack Podcast. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. Again, that's Mike. I'm Ted. Catch you guys next time.